Okay, hello and welcome back everybody to the channel and to our third chapter of Code Pilot. And what you can see going on in front of you now is I'm just moving over a tile that I made in the chapter 2.1 troubleshooting. If you didn't see that, go and watch it. And basically we just troubleshoot one of the things I had trouble with when trying to do this episode really. And all we've done is copy it over to our main texture pack there. And what we're doing here is we're just making it so that there's an array of sprites in the block function. So what this means is, obviously as you see with the wall, there was 3 different tiles for a wall, and what we're going to do is we're going to set an array up for them and a main sprite, and the array will hold all the different ones. So the array will hold all 3 icons or all 3 sprites, and then we'll use a bit of code later on that will be able to decipher what one to draw. And as you can see, I'm using the green part of the colour, green part of the integer, to determine what sprite to draw rather than using the main sprite. And then I'm just going through all the grass block, dirt block and what will soon become the wall block, just to make sure that they've all got this function in them that makes sure they send the green and the blue, so the green and blue is stored rather than just deleted, which was what it was before. What you'll see me do now is just copy the dirt block function and just call it wall block, and this way I don't have to rewrite everything that's written in the dirt block class. So now we've just got wall block here, and I set an ID up, or a sprite, sorry, I send it sprite 81, which I counted out, that's where I've put it. It's in the bottom left corner, that's what 81 is. And as you can see here, all I do now is I just get a pen, the pencil tool on paint.net, which is the graphics thing I use, and I just draw this sort of eye. I guess it's an eye. It's sort of like an eye with a big head on top of it. Build him, and then run it. So what I'm doing is do that, save it. When I run it, what should happen is we draw the wall block, and when we swap over to the coding screen, as you'll see in a moment, you'll see if I run it, that's what should happen. We should just be able to see the wall block. 81 is just the normal wall, so left to right, and it's sort of got the top bit of the wall at the top with the brick on the side, and so that's our base. That's the one that we draw. If we draw one wall block, that'll be what we'll be drawing. I may change that a bit later on, but for now that's what it will draw. Okay, we're sat on this screen for quite a while. What did happen when I was filming this is I have to switch between the paint.net screen and the coding screen, and sometimes I did forget to do that because obviously I have to have the paint screen full screen like this, and the same with the coding screen, and so I have to make sure I have them like that, and I have to switch between them. So XSplit, which is what I use to record, is underneath the paint thing, so I forget to click on it every now and again. That'll be why you'll see that I do this every now and again where I forget to put it in, and I forget to change the screen over. But any minute now we should swap over. Okay, so basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a bit of code just to detect what blocks are around it. So to detect if there's a wall block next to it, each side, or above and below it. If it's above and below it, we'll draw the side of the wall. If it's left and right, we'll draw the top of the wall. If it's sort of right and down sort of thing, we'll draw a corner. And then we start working out, using the blue part of the integer, whether we're going to flip it or not. So the blue will be how to flip it, and that will be in a render function that you'll see happening a bit later on. And obviously if it's a certain combination of tiles around it, then we'll flip the block horizontally, vertically, or both. Obviously flipping both would be the same as a 180 degree rotation. As you did see then, as we come back to the coding screen now, you did see the game there just showing the wall block, and you'll see our functions changed a little bit as well. We're storing the X and the Y value, and this is going to be for me a bit later on, and it's so that I can detect what blocks are around it. So we're storing the X and the Y. Basically what's going to happen is I might make it a bit later on that you can destroy blocks, so you know you can dig through the side of the wall to get into the bank and stuff like that, and so that'll be nice to have the X and the Y value to send it to level to tell it to remove that X and Y value block. So we'll do that. Also, the first value we have is an ID block, and as you can see in this one, wall block, the ID block is 81. I decided to keep the ID block the same as the base sprite, so obviously in this it's just the wall block that you see keep popping up. And what the ID block does is it means I can classify all the blocks as the same if they're the same block, if that makes sense. So whereas obviously the wall block here, we've got 3 different blocks, as I said, we want to make sure that we don't see the corner wall block as a different block to the side wall block. So what we do is we have an ID of 81, and then we're testing to see if the ID is the same between the 2 blocks. So that just helps it out to make it so it's a little bit easier for me to code, really. And as you can see here, me troubleshooting again, printing out the value of X, Y. And so what I'm testing here is the block above, so making sure that it's detecting the block above properly. And as you can see, it worked in the end. So then I test it with up, down, left and right, and so we detect the blocks in all 4 directions around it, and that way we should be able to then use the bit of code that I said earlier to change it. As you see there, I did the 3 sprites. Now I'll just use a bit of code inside the actual class, just this .sprites.add, and then create grab the sprite from the art class, which is the one we made earlier, remember, that holds all the sprite sheets and the level with the images and stuff. And so what we've got now is, as you can see here, we're testing, so if right and down, then green equals 1, which means it will start drawing the corner block. So if it's right and down, it draws the corner block, which obviously joins the right and the down. And then we have to here just make sure that the block it's trying to draw does not equal null. And it's now what it does, it's just drawing the side block, so as if it was up and down. And that's because I didn't put the function in properly. And as you can see now, I comment it out. Them 2 slashes just makes it a comment, so it comments out. So what I do that for is so that the code's still there, but it's not being used, so I can use it later if I want to. And as you can see now, I test X equals 4 and Y equals 2 to print up, down, left and right. And why I do that is that's that top left corner, sorry, that's the coordinates of it. And as you can see here, it's true, and false, which means up and left are true and down and right are false. And what I did think this meant at first was that they all had to be not, so if the ID does not equal on that, I then go back and change this, because I realise obviously if it doesn't equal it, then it means it's not the same block. But that makes it work, because that's basically how it's coded. Obviously I know right and down are true, but obviously they're not meant to be at this point, they're meant to be false. No, they are meant to be true, sorry. Instead of false, they're coming out as false, they're meant to be true. And so what I have to do here is basically what's happening is it draws left to right and then goes down to the next row and draws left to right, next row, left to right. So by putting the initialize in with it, it doesn't work properly, because what it's now doing is it's testing, obviously only the blocks above and to the left are drawn, so the down and right won't work. So what I've had to do here is now make another loop in level, so once it's settled what the blocks are, it now has to go back in and test again. And the other thing I realised I was doing is I wasn't storing the ID of the block. That's the other thing. So when it was sending ID, it wasn't even recognising that it was sending it, it was just literally still being 0. That's why it wasn't working. Once I did start storing it, it started working a little better, and it started working how I wanted it to. And then I set a left, right, up and down. So what that does is, obviously as you see just a minute ago, draws whether it's the top part or the side. And as you see as well, is we was having the corner on there as well, the top left corner. Now what you can see I've done is I've set blue to equal 4, and I'm sending blue to the render function in sprite. I go back into the image class and make the new render function with a new parameter called data, and I now put a switch function in. What this does is you pass it a variable, so data in this case, and that's an integer. If it's 0, so case 0, it just draws the function normally. Case 4, which would be the one we're sending it to try and flip the thing. Now what we're doing is we use width -1 -i, and this flips it. So this draws it from the right hand side to the left. That's what it uses its references, but then it actually draws it left to the right, if that makes sense. So all we literally do is flip it. The next thing I have to do is set to try and draw the bottom right corner, or another bottom corner, so to try and flip it vertically. What I do here though is I'm going through into my paint function. Again, I forgot to switch the screen over, and I'm setting it so, oh there we go, I did switch it over in the end. I'm setting all these blocks on the side to have a blue value of 4, so that they're flipped. What I do later on is I actually set the wall tile so that the straight down one, which is the one I'm flipping, is the same, is symmetrical, so that I don't actually have to flip it. It just can be the same each side, because there's no way of putting that into code, and my idea was literally to be able to just draw straight on. And obviously when I make it so that I can make a level creator and it's graphical, the same sort of thing, you just literally click the wall block, and as you draw the wall it will update itself to draw the corners in and what have you. And obviously, as I said, there's no way of putting it into code to be able to do that. What I'm doing here is I did realise that I actually do need a sort of bottom corner piece, which is, as you can see here, the bottom corner, and the bottom corner piece obviously has to show a bit of the wall on it as well. So that's what this is that you'll see me creating now, is that bottom wall piece. So it's got the top as the top normally does, and then a bottom to it as well, essentially, so that you can see the wall, because obviously this then has to join onto the bits that show the wall as well, so I have to make sure they all line up. And as you see here, I set everything the right and up, so that's the bottom left corners, and you see it draws, and you see it doesn't quite line up. That's because I didn't even test if it lined up, I just drew it and assumed it would. I go back into the paint function, change that so that I just line them up. All I do to do that is copy the tile with the sideways one next to it and just line it up. So I even I'll move one of them so they line up, and as you see they work. And as you see, I did flip them the wrong way in the middle there, and so those flipped. I'll go back, set the flips right on them, because obviously the left hand side on that has a right hand side wall. As you can see, I just flipped some wrong ones there. So what I was doing here was I was actually going back into the file and having to set the things separately, which isn't what I wanted to be able to have to do. I wanted to just have it so that I can literally, as I said, just literally draw the box, and obviously that ain't what that does. Also, I think it looks a bit weird sort of having the wall visible. In my opinion, that looked weird. So what I then done is went into here and counted it out, copied that bit over so that that line, the beige line, is going to be in the center, and then copied and pasted the top part, the brick, and then copied and pasted it all over to the other side as well. So now it was completely symmetrical, and as you see there, I flipped it rather than just copying and pasting it, so it's actually symmetrical, so that it will line up again when I line it up with the next one down. What I wanted to do as well is I just wanted to make the beige a little bigger, and you see there I didn't quite like it because I think it looked too you got like dark spots on it, and them dark spots just replicated themselves again and again really, which is not what I wanted. And as you see there, I just copied the bottom part of it so that I could line it up, and I realised that wasn't enough, so I had copied a little bit more so it lines up, and then copied one line to line up with it, and then I had to just sort of mess around just copying bits of different types of brown and stuff so that it all lines up properly. And as you can see there, that's the top part, so that's our right and down bit, and then I copy that into here. And I went through the fault again, as I did last time, of thinking that I didn't need to draw that bottom left corner, I then obviously realised I do need to draw the bottom left corner, because I still need it so that it's just sort of, as you see last time, it just has the little bit on top, and then it comes along in the same height, and then draws the wall in the same way that the normal wall piece does. So, as I say, a lot of this episode was just paint mainly. Most of it was in the art program, sort of figuring out how I was drawing it properly, and going between the art program and the coding, and then just sort of testing it over and over again to make sure that I'd got the code right and make sure the code worked, and testing all the different common block combinations, so the different block placings. As you see here, this is me having to go through and set the up and down, as I said last time, as I forgot last time and this time actually, now I mention it, and then just copy the wall over so that it's seamless. That's the idea, is I wanted it seamless as well, so that you could literally go from, obviously you could draw a block 3 miles long and it wouldn't matter, it would just look natural. And then I go back into the code and test it, clearly obviously forgetting to switch my screen back to code, and that's why we just sit here looking at the paint program for now. But I went back into the code and tested it. Obviously I knew the code was already there for it to work, but obviously I was just making sure the graphic looked properly, looked right. And then next thing I wanted to do is obviously make a ground texture for inside the building. Obviously we've got dirt and grass there that you see, but I wanted to make like a wooden texture, so I've gone for a slightly lighter brown, and the dots that you see are just counting how big to do it, so that it, again, it works seamlessly. And then I copy and paste that, copy a whole plank, and I sort of try and place that in the middle, and you see there, once I copy it again, that will now run completely seamlessly, and I can again draw that block as big as I want and it will run nice. And then I save that, just select all the inside tiles, and I think I use a black of 2 on this one, because obviously it's the third block along, starting from counting from 0, 0, 1, 2, so that's why. I then go into the code again and now make wooden floor block, set an ID of 2, the sprite that it adds to 2 as well, so that it sets the right ID. And I also have to copy this bit of code to make sure that it includes wooden floor block. And what I need to do is I need to work out a way that I can just send an ID to it, and it works its own ID out by tile, if you know what I mean, and then that will hopefully do it. But we'll see. What I might have to do is at some point put in the art class, a static function that has all this bit, the for it to work out what block it needs to create. And as you see, when I was running it, it was just running in black, so it was just black there, like it was just black in the background. It was no wooden flooring was being drawn, and the reason why is I can't remember. Basically in the render thing now, we're testing it, it's definitely drawing an ID of 2, and it's printing out green, which is 0, which is the one we need it to print, because obviously there's only one thing we're including in it. And we're testing to make sure the sprite actually has a thing. And what had happened is I wasn't saving the I wasn't saving the file in the paint program. I never saved it, so it was including a pink tile, or a black, no, it was including a black tile, not transparent, it was including a black tile, and drawing obviously the black on it, which is what we needed it to do. It was doing what it was meant to be doing essentially, but obviously not what I wanted it to be doing. And as you see here, we do get like little black lines on the side, and why that is obviously the code that we've got is, if it's got left and down, which it has, is to flip them, and so it's flipping it and stopping the seamlessness. That's why you're getting the thick black line. So I put a bit of code in to set blue equals 0, obviously, but that still gets the corner and throws the corners off. So what I do is I just put a kind of a cheating function in, really, that if the ID is less than 30, to set blue as 0, and what this does is it sets the first 30 blocks as just flooring. But what I'm going to do at some point as well is put an actual variable in the class that sets that. But for now, I'm going to leave it there. thank you for watching this episode. Please leave a comment and a like. Please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.